and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
It sounds...
What if one of the most celebrated royal births wasn't actually what the world was led to believe?
They think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have portrayed Archie's birth as a carefully guarded story, wrapped in secrecy, privacy, and a bold act of defiance against the traditions and expectations of the palace.
A dreadful thing to do, and actually completely...
A growing chorus of voices is rising loud, determined, and armed with receipts ready to challenge the carefully crafted narrative.
Take a listen.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
They suggest that something far darker may have been unfolding behind those hospital doors, casting doubt on the fairy tale version of events.
I'm really enraged from this 10-second clip. It just annoyed me.
And at the center of this storm stands Candace Owens, driving the conversation with bold claims and unflinching commentary.
Does it make you sound like a better mom? It makes you sound like really kind of into yourself in a way.
She's calling out what she believes are glaring contradictions in Meghan's pregnancy story, questioning the details that many have long taken at face value.
Crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
Contradictions so outrageous that they've left medical professionals and royal insiders alike shaking their heads in.
Describes her very well, and he does this by taking a look.
Absolute media manipulation. But I thought tonight this was really ridiculous.
Harry's own memoir to alleged hospital insider leaks. The official timeline doesn't just come across as unusual, it feels almost impossible.
Palace is being to remove Prince Archie and Princess Ellie's royal line of succession until the Duchess provides absolute proof that she popped out both babies.
Epidurals, a rushed hospital discharge, and conflicting explanations for why the press wasn't notified only add to the growing list of puzzling inconsistencies.
Why lie? It was just so truly bizarre.
When all these puzzle pieces are placed together, the picture that emerges is far from a fairy tale royal birth. Instead, it's a tangled web of contradictions that's becoming harder to ignore. And here's the kicker. If even part of this narrative falls apart under scrutiny, it raises a chilling question: what exactly was the royal family hiding, and why? Because if the inconsistencies are real, then the public hasn't just been misled. The bond of trust between Meghan, Harry, and the millions who celebrated Archie's arrival may have been shattered from the very beginning.
That's not necessary.
Silence everybody and just produce a DNA sample or proof of delivery.
It's like she's playing a human being. Like it's a
Before you jump to conclusions, let's break down the evidence piece by piece, because what comes next could change how you see this royal story. The timeline Harry lays out in his best-selling memoir may reveal more than the couple intended, describing Meghan giving birth to Archie at the Portland hospital, allegedly receiving not one but 2 epidurals and leaving with their newborn just hours later. On the surface it reads like a dramatic, glamorous tale of resilience and control, but when doctors, nurses, and experienced mothers began dissecting that account, the questions poured in, chief among them the idea of 2 epidurals during labor, which is a red flag since an epidural isn't a painkiller you can pop in and out, but involves inserting a catheter near the spinal cord, and switching it mid-labor is both highly unusual and...
Me first, because it's a lie. She's not in the hospital trying to induce labor by twerking. The hospital will not give you a bed because you're trying to induce labor. You are not allowed.
The recovery timeline Harry describes borders on medically impossible, since most new mothers, especially those who've had complications or even standard pain management, are monitored for at least a full day before being discharged. Yet Harry insists Meghan was back home at Frogmore Cottage, settled with Archie, just 2 hours later. Adding to the strangeness is the geography, with Portland Hospital in central London and Frogmore a considerable drive away, meaning that when you factor in discharge paperwork, newborn checks, pain recovery, and the commute, the math simply doesn't add up, leaving the whole story feeling rushed, glossed over, and suspiciously convenient, which raises an uncomfortable question. Why present a version of events that medical professionals say doesn't line up with reality? And if this timeline is inaccurate, what else in their carefully curated narrative might be misleading, especially since the contradictions only grow deeper once you examine how the palace itself handled Archie's birth?
relaxate it, and then both of you start twerking. Because in her mind, she was thinking, I'm going to release this later in a Netflix doc or release it later to show people how relatable I am. Otherwise, you can have a cute moment with your husband without recording it. Like, why would you record this for any reason? Why would you record this?
If Harry's timeline raised eyebrows, Meghan's handling of the press lit the fuse, because traditionally, when a royal baby is born, protocol is strict and symbolic. The Queen is informed first, an official announcement is prepared, and the press is alerted almost immediately, so the public can share in the moment. Yet when Archie arrived, those rules seemed to vanish, with Meghan offering not one, not two, but 3 different explanations for why the press wasn't notified as expected, first citing privacy, then suggesting complications during the birth, and later, shifting the story yet again, which raised the obvious question. If the truth was simple, why so many versions? Even royal reporters, typically sympathetic to the palace, admitted confusion, with some being
they simply not made an announcement to the fact that all of the speculation about the children's arrival,
while others were simultaneously informed that Meghan was still in labor, an inconsistency that didn't just break protocol but undermined the credibility of the institution itself. And since palace staff and protection officers follow rules to the letter, such deviations don't just happen by accident, meaning the secrecy and contradictions didn't merely spark curiosity, they ignited outright. Suspiciónanse 1,111 millones, 111,111. Was this confusion a deliberate attempt to hide the real circumstances of Archie's birth? Because as strange as the press situation was, it pales compared to what emerges when you examine Portland Hospital itself. Do these inconsistencies point to a simple desire for privacy, a calculated attempt to generate sympathy, or an effort to conceal something deeper about the monarchy? When Harry described Meghan receiving 2 epidurals during labor, medical professionals immediately raised doubts, since an epidural isn't a quick injection but a delicate procedure where a catheter is placed near the spinal cord to provide continuous pain relief. Once inserted, it remains in place and can be adjusted in dosage without removal, which is why experts argue the claim of 2 epidurals makes little sense, as switching catheters mid-labor is both rare and risky, and even in the unusual event that it happened, it would almost certainly prolong recovery and require close, extended monitoring afterward.
One proof that I'm authentic, I just dropped myself twerking. I have proven that I am authentic because I twerked with my husband.
Yet Harry's account frames this as if it were routine, glossed over like an unremarkable detail. But critics argue it doesn't reflect medical reality and instead reads like a dramatized retelling or worse, a deliberate misrepresentation. And the confusion deepens, because if Meghan truly underwent an additional invasive procedure, her reported rapid recovery and same-day discharge from Portland Hospital becomes even less believable, as the combination of multiple epidurals and an immediate release directly contradicts standard medical protocols that emphasize monitoring to prevent complications such as nerve injury, low blood pressure, or infection. Put bluntly, the story simply doesn't align with how childbirth medicine actually works, which raises an unsettling question. Was this merely a misunderstanding of medical terminology, or was the narrative intentionally shaped to appear extraordinary? Because with Meghan's pregnancy story, every small inconsistency seems to open the door to something much larger.
Add those things, it would be very easy.
Childbirth is not something a mother simply walks away from within a few hours, regardless of privilege, because standard medical practice requires at least 24 hours of observation after delivery, with vital signs monitored, bleeding assessed, and both mother and newborn undergoing multiple checks before discharge. And if complications such as preeclampsia are involved, as Meghan herself has suggested, early release becomes even less credible, since preeclampsia is a serious, potentially life-threatening condition that can cause seizures, organ damage, and dangerous spikes in blood pressure, often requiring days or even weeks of hospital monitoring. Yet Harry's memoir claims Meghan delivered, underwent multiple interventions, and was back home in the span of a feature film. A timeline experts argue directly contradicts safe medical care, with some calling it reckless at best and implausible at worst. And here's where the contradictions sharpen, because while Meghan has positioned herself as a voice for maternal health awareness, stressing the importance of proper care and monitoring, if her story of leaving so soon is true, it undercuts the very standards she champions. And if it's not, then the public has been fed a curated version of events that doesn't reflect reality either way. The narrative raises more questions than answers, questions that only intensify once insider testimonies begin to resurface.
all of the pictures, my point is, out there were inconsistent with the idea of a real pregnancy.
From memoir contradictions to hospital mysteries, Meghan's pregnancy story is riddled with inconsistencies that simply don't add up. And whether you see this as sloppy storytelling or something more carefully constructed, one thing is undeniable: the truth remains buried under layers of confusion. Candace Owens may have stirred the pot, but her commentary highlights questions people have been whispering for years. The details don't match, the timelines clash, and every new explanation only fuels deeper suspicion. But here's the twist: this isn't the only part of Meghan's story raising eyebrows. If you thought the pregnancy timeline was shocking, wait until you hear about her age scandal with her own father, Thomas Markle, making claims that could completely reshape how the public views her. Don't miss our previous deep dive, which ties directly into everything we've uncovered today and exposes even more secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. Before you click away, hit play on that video and continue this journey with Uzwal. Want to see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes? This is Star Spotlight, where the truth behind the headlines is always one step closer than you think. Stay curious.